I'd like to talk about running today. I'm thinking about going for a 100-mile run sometime this year. Um, I've heard people who say that if you can run 50 miles, no problem. You can easily run 100. I've heard people that have run 100 miles say, um, that running 100 miles is magnitudes harder than running a marathon or 50 miles. Hopefully this year I'll get to try to find out what the experience is like for me. One thing I do know from running lots of 50Ks, a couple of 50 milers, one 100K distance, is that endurance running really strips a person down. Emotionally, physically, it just strips you down. And I remember the first time going for a 50-mile solo run on a bike trail. There was a memorial for a man who had died and had been hit by a car coming through an intersection on a bike trail. And the guy was about my age, and I was probably a good 40 miles in. That was the furthest I'd ever run. And as soon as I saw how old that guy was, just tears started flowing instantly. And that was when I realized what it must be like being a female, what PMS must be like. So 60 seconds later, I thought about it that way, and I was kind of out there by myself smiling about how that much fatigue, that deep into a run, just how fragile you start to feel. How you doing, buddy? Oh, by the way, this is the pair of Huarache sandals that I did a 50-mile solo run in on a bike trail. Smooth, flat, easy course. That was all I needed. They're about to wear through. So for 20-25 bucks a pair, you can get thousands of miles out of these things. The memorial that I'd seen out on that bike trail, it said, "Stop, look, live." Pretty good words for all of us to live by. I'll certainly never forget passing by there that day. Yeah, I can't believe that my wife used to run in these. I used to run in shoes just like this. Best thing I can say about these shoes, chalk 'em. Many runners talk about the spiritual side of running, and it is interesting, especially when you're on the trails in a beautiful place, relaxing into a longer run. You truly do feel like, rather than just observing the landscape, you're part of it. You're not just passing through. The principle of yin and yang really applies in an interesting way to running. Everything from the second-to-second process of running, one side of the body sort of doing the opposite of the other, and to be the most efficient, you keep that in balance. Another way that it applies is in pushing for more endurance and or more speed. Runners are always kind of dancing on a fine line between pain or productive discomfort. Pain being a sign that you're about to become injured, which would be a setback, but productive discomfort is essentially growth. So there's a yin and a yang at work there. Runners trying to improve are dancing on that line, and obviously today is a rest day for me because I think I pushed a little too far beyond that line. Set a goal that excites you or even scares the heck out of you, whether that would be walking around the living room or running more than 100 miles. It's all relative. Small changes can make big things happen. I mean, look what Rosa Parks did when she decided to change seats in the bus. Heck, just get on a different bus altogether. You can stop taking medications and eat healthy foods. You can give up all meat, eggs, and dairy and be far, far healthier. You can get rid of your shoes and run barefoot or close to barefoot. and be far better off. You can get rid of a lot of the clutter in your life, and research has shown that people with less stuff tend to be happier. Although I'm pretty happy with this couch right now. I've thought about taking maybe a yoga class or some meditation courses. Yeah, but my budget for running is pretty close to zero. And practicing chi running, Danny Dreyer's chi running style. There's a book out called Chi Running. I highly recommend it. And basically what he teaches is to run from your core. Arms and legs are just kind of along for the ride. You turn your body into an oxygen delivery system. And not only is running basically an active type of yoga, it also becomes very meditative. Literally, hours can drift by where you're just very happy, kind of in a different zone. I guess you just have to do it to feel it and experience it for yourself. Everything about us human beings indicates that we are ideal endurance running machines, running people. The raramuri, that means running people. As are horses and dogs, although they are not really designed to run safely as far as we can run. I had to smile last night when I noticed the most popular Super Bowl 48 commercial featured a dog and a horse, our fellow running animals that we are so enamored with. There's a reason for that. You can read all about that in one of my favorite books, Born to Run, to really get a deeper understanding of what we really are as people. I saw a neat video about a guy who ran his first 100 miles at the Ohio Burning River 100, and you never would have guessed this guy could run 100 miles. He didn't really look that fit. In tears, he indicated that he was thrilled to do what he did. It was a dream come true, but you're not going to find what you're looking for at the finish line. Which another way of saying the road is better than the inn, or perhaps in trail runner terms, the trail is better than the tent. Simply meaning to me that the experiences and people along the way are really what it's all about. So in this process where I'm hoping to run 100 miles, it's only early February and I've already done some first time things like running a barefoot 50K on an indoor track. This stuff's already making me stronger. Whether I ever finish running 100 miles or not, it's all been a fascinating experiment, especially on the food side. I can't really talk about running without some mention of food. I'm on my fourth year of an all plant-based diet, somewhat inspired by the Tarahumara Indians, the famous Raramuri running people of the Copper Canyons of Mexico. Their environment dictates that they eat essentially about a 98% plant-based diet, and they, their best runners can cover 300 miles in rugged canyon trails in a very rugged environment. So they've proven the ideal diet, and now science backs that. I'll put a link in my video description to some great science that backs what the Indians and famous ultra runners like Scott Jurek already know. A plant-strong or 100% plant-based diet, a cholesterol-free diet, very well supports running. Maybe discomfort really is nature's way of eliminating weakness. I can say from doing a 10-day fasting process and from running further and further, and also sometimes faster at shorter distances. That putting your body through discomforts does help eliminate weakness or make you stronger. In 2012, just under 6,000 people in North America are known to have run a 100-mile race. And I don't know, I'm not a math major, but that must be 0.00000 of 1% of the population. I think it'd be pretty neat to be part of that 0.0000000. One of the cool things about winter in Ohio is running on my treadmill, believe it or not. I like to borrow, free movies from the library. Oftentimes they're documentaries. And one of my favorites this year, highly recommend it, is by the guy who made Jim Carrey super world famous, Tom Shadyac, the director, producer. He hit his head. He wanted to quit life. He had a concussion so bad. And when he finally came out of that, he decided to make a documentary, traveled the world, and he wanted to find out what was wrong with the world. Brilliant show. What he ended up really finding out was what was right with the world. And some key points were the fact that we're really born to cooperate more so than compete. We're more lovers than fighters. It's in our DNA. It's how we survived. So survival of the fittest is really survival of whomever is the best at cooperating. The concept of yin and yang really relates, interestingly, in my opinion, to the ideas of cooperation versus competition. Obviously, you have to have both. Anytime you have more than one person, there's going to be conflict. So, Tom Shadyac's documentary. It was called I Am, and one of the many great lessons from his documentary was that in cooperative cultures, where cooperation was valued more than competition, they had a word for most of us. I can't remember what that word was, but essentially we're the only species on the planet that takes more than it needs, and it is a form of mental illness. After I went through a cancer scare, one of the many things I came to realize is that, ultimately we're all just renters. Life is very temporary. It doesn't really matter how many deeds, property deeds, titles, and receipts, how much stuff we have. Maybe it's important to keep in mind that the have-nots of the world, they don't necessarily want what the haves are enjoying. Maybe they just want the people who have too much to stop, taking too much and destroying the planet. Ultimately, what my experiments have been proving, as I've used my body like a test tube, is that we are herbivore endurance runners. And most people deny that and pay the price. So I believe we could keep a lot more people off medications, out of hospitals, if more people would stop denying reality. Speaking of herbivore endurance runners, here is a great example. My friend Ruth Heydrich, Dr. Ruth, PhD in nutrition, healed herself 32 years ago from stage 4 cancer with an all plant-based diet and no chemotherapy, radiation, or estrogen lowering surgery. Her 4th book is out, and I am honored to be in there for a few pages. Here's something else that I'm very proud to be part of. Last year, this book came out, and I'm one of 19 contributors. I'm in here with some bodybuilders, triathletes, all sorts of people very knowledgeable about plant-based nutrition. This book project by Scott Chandler is a fundraiser for Mercy for Animals. In here I was writing about being a minimalist vegan ultra runner, but really what it was about was the transformation, going from dis-ease to ease, going from cancer and fear to hope and joy. One of the best ways to learn about yourself is to push yourself way, way beyond what you could have ever conceived you could possibly do in terms of walking or running. Seems to me like many runners look at it as a kind of a necessary evil, an obligation that they have to fulfill to stay in shape. I don't look at it that way anymore at all. It's more of a joyful celebration of what humans are. I hope more people will sort of rejoin the human race, unplug from the modern culture a bit and get tuned in to themselves better and the environment, and move the way we were intended to move. You know what? We should go for a run.